What's the potential of the Angel Reese and Kamilla Cardoso pairing? Can the Sky reach that potential? That's exactly what we're here to talk about on today's episode of CHGO Sky. Let's get to it. Great morning, Skytown. Obviously, as always, you're here with host Stephen PridGeon-Garner. Looking forward to talking more Sky basketball with you all. Appreciate everybody that made time or is making time to either tap in with us live, listen to us on audio, or eventually watch us on YouTube. So we appreciate your support always. Again, we can't do what we do without you, and we genuinely, earnestly mean that. But in addition to me, I also have a special guest today. Someone who, if you watch women's basketball and you have been in the space for the last couple of years, if not longer than that, there's no way you haven't either come across, interacted with, or seen tweets or podcast clips from Kevin Lewis. Kevin is one of the co-founders of the 94 by 50 and someone that's made his rounds in the media space in multiple capacities. So someone with a breadth of knowledge that extends past the recent couple of seasons, but also can very much dive into the details on things. So Kevin, it's been, like we messaged about, felt like a long time coming for us to be in front of the microphones and sharing perspectives and talking hoops. So appreciate this opportunity to kind of break bread with you. And like I said, just talk some ball, man. How you feeling? How's life? How's everything going for you?
What up? What it is? What's popping? Everything's all good, Steven. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to have a conversation with you about the Chicago Sky. This has been a long time coming. A lot of conversations, behind the scenes, and I really appreciate the invitation. So I can't wait to talk hoops with you.
For sure, for sure. Let's go ahead and get straight to it. Well, before we get there, I want to shout out Stephen Nicholas. He's producing for us today. The man with the big news and big time promotion news that we got on the CHGO Sky. So I want to give him a side. So I want to give him a quick salute and let him know that we appreciate him always. He's been producing on and off for us the last handful of weeks with the schedule being up in the air and things like that. So we appreciate him making time early, super early in the day. Knowing that he has a long day ahead of him, as all days are, as we transition into bear season over in Chicago. So appreciate him as well. And Kevin, back to you, man. Just generally, because I think this is maybe your first time talking with a Sky specific podcast. What have been your kind of general thoughts and observations? What's caught your eye most from the Chicago Sky season so far?
Well, obviously, it's not the season that, of course, Chicago fans expected. However, I do see a lot of potential in growth in the stars that they've drafted, specifically in 2024 with Angel Reese and Kamilla Cardoso. I do believe that these are the foundational pieces, for the Sky team, and they have tons of potential, if they can bring a solid team around this solid core that they have. So again, I think, with disappointment, I think we can describe it as the word. I know that a lot of Chicago Sky fans would be kind of beyond what the term disappointment would be for this year in particular, but I do see a lot of potential, and I do see some progress, especially when we have the superstar in Angel Reese in particular, especially at the point of contact, when she has the ball in her hands offensively. And obviously we know what she can do defensively and what she can do from a rebound perspective. But again, just kind of shaping all of this and looking at the season as a whole, things just didn't go the way that it was expected. And sometimes that happens. It happens in sports regularly. It also happens, throughout the foundation of life. You expect things to go, a certain way, and unfortunately, it doesn't. So what do? We try to pivot, and we try to make the best of the situation that we have. Just like we always say, you got to play the cards that you're dealt. Unfortunately, the cards that were dealt to the Chicago Sky wasn't the best situation in this season. However, I do see a lot of potential moving forward in the future.
And with the deck of cards that they've been dealt this season, um, would you say that you feel like they've made the most of the situation, considering you lose your starting point guard, who a lot of your offense is based off of? You lose your starting two guard for multiple stretches of the season. You lose your franchise face for a significant stretch at a pivotal moment in the season. You even lose Kamilla in the middle of all of that due to her going to play overseas with their native team. Like kind of all of those things being considered in tandem with the brand new coaching staff, brand new context of players around all of these pieces that we're speaking to. Do you feel like they've made the most of the kind of adverse situation they've been working through this season?
I think in retrospect, you can think about it in that case, Stephen. From what I've seen throughout the season, Coach Tyler Marsh, I feel like has had to make tons of adjustments. And from that adjustment standpoint, obviously, first losing, your point guard, your quote unquote centerpiece of the offense, and structuring that offense, in Courtney Vandersloot, losing her to an ACL injury early. I think that was kind of like the domino effect of the entire season almost. And of course, chemistry is very important. And when we lose, certain pieces, a lot of times your chemistry can often, fall by the wayside. And that's the unfortunate thing that happened this season. But to make the most of it, you've seen flashes throughout the season. They've had, some key wins, and recently a key win against a struggling New York Liberty team, with all of the pieces you would think, even though they had some injury bugs, but the talent. From that perspective, you've seen the resilience of what the Chicago Sky was able to do in that game in Brooklyn. So there were tons of flashes of potential, as I've said. And I think you can say that Coach Tyler Marsh has tried to make the most of it. I do also believe that you're absolutely right when you have, your shooting guard and Ariel Atkins be out a number amount of games. You've also had Angel Reese be out with the back injury for a number amount of games. A lot of that from a synergy and cohesion standpoint can definitely, be of a nuisance, if you will. So has this team made the most of the opportunities? I do believe so. Could they have been better? Absolutely. Who wouldn't be? But I think when we're talking about the context of it, it's always those situations, like you said, when you have a deck of cards and you're expected to play it one way, but unfortunately, it's played another. Sometimes you just have to go with the flow, and you have to chalk this season up as a season of growth, understanding, and potential for development for the future. But I also want to look at the structure of the roster as well. Could it have been better? Absolutely. And I also want to just say, from the roster makeup, I think that there were some solid pieces. But again, when you have those injuries and when you're all having to have this plug and play type mentality with those injuries being included, sometimes you have to make the most of what you have in front of you. So, it was again, unfortunate, but I think with the core pieces that you have, you can look up to the future and potentially, do something better as the seasons come along. And also, before we go into the next subject, you also have to consider the CBA. They're in current talks and negotiations, and right now it's looking like we might see either an extension or a potential lockout. Not for certain, but when you're looking at these types of scenarios moving into the future, you have to take into consideration those type of scenarios and part of it.
Yeah, very, very well said. I think you touched on a lot of things, and I mean, a lot of those things we will be touching on going forward, with the two main topics being the skyscrapers themselves. But very relevant is the CBA to trying to build a roster around these two. Very relevant also to building a roster around these two is the potential, almost impending lockout at this point. It doesn't seem like either side, either the league or the players, are seeing eye to eye in any capacity. And because of that, it feels like there's going to be some bluffs being called. And I think that's probably the most concise way to put that. It feels like that's already been happening. If everything that everything that Satu mentioned to me back in, I think that was in late May, early June, when I just casually asked about expansion, and that ended up turning into an opportunity for her to let the league know that they are not pleased or happy about the slap in the face offer that they received. So that's where those things are. They haven't gotten better since that moment where she mentioned what she did to me. And yeah, it feels like with each and every increment of news that breaks out regarding it, seeing eye to eye is just not in the picture right now. So yeah, definitely be on the lookout for that. With the expansion and teams coming into the league and how many players teams will be able to keep, what that looks like, considering most of the league is also going to be free agents going into this offseason. Outside of players on rookie scale deals, there's only a handful of players that are on actual contracts that go into next season. A lot going on, a lot of news that needs to be siphoned through by the WNBA on the business side of things. That'll be another podcast for another day in the offseason. We will have plenty of time to get into that because it's going to be a very news-heavy offseason before transactions even begin to take place. But back to today's topics. Kevin, Angel Reese, very special player, very talented player, very unique player in many respects. It's only played in 8 games post All-Star break. And Steven, if we could go ahead and get the Angel Reese post All-Star break graphic up. In this stretch, 8 games post All-Star break, she's averaging 16 points a game, shooting 50% from the field, grabbing 12.4 rebounds, 4.6. Both of those two lead the W in the post All-Star break stretch. 3.5 assists per game, 1.1 steals per game, and 1.0 blocks per game. Also first in free throw attempts at 7 on average per game. So, Kevin, when you look at those numbers from Angel Reese, compared to the 29 games that she's played prior to the break, averaging 14.6 and 12.6 rebounds. When you look at these numbers and you also take into context, there's only 5 other players post All-Star break that are averaging a block and a steal per game. You put that in tandem with the rebound numbers sustaining, the scoring going up, the efficiency going up. When you look at Angel Reese post All-Star break, what does that say to you, and what do you think that entails for her in terms of her potential going forward?
I mean, it's growth. And a lot of people, and again, we're always talking about context and the way that we talk about certain players. And Angel Reese is, by far one of the, best players, best young players that we've seen in the league as of recent, right? And one thing that sticks out to me about Angel Reese is you forget about how she is at the point of contact when she has the ball in her hands and when she's initiating offense. And I think that was one of the things and one of the improvements that Tyler Marsh made, even before All-Star break. I think there were a handful of games where you saw, her initiating the offense off the rebound, initiating the offense off the elbow, whether it be through DHO. If she was even running the horn set herself, with Rachel Banham on one side and Kamilla Cardoso on the other side, and just being able to dictate what the defense in front of her is providing, and for her to, go downhill, with the high pick and roll with her and Kamilla, or running an inverse pick and roll with her and Rachel Banham, or Kia Nurse, or Ariel Atkins. You saw just a lot of potential, from a playmaking standpoint. And I think that's what the improvement is and the growth is from her standpoint. But it's not that she was never able to do it. We saw flashes of that at LSU when they didn't have the, traditional point guard, if you will, especially in that national championship season. So I think that's where we found, a lot of that growth. And to add on to her relentless rebounding and her tremendous footwork on the defensive end, it always just turns around and give you a full circle moment on how good, Angel Reese could actually be. And that was always the conversation. A couple of improvements here or there, from a half court standpoint, getting more of a consistent jump shot, right? And she will get there, obviously. But when you have a talent of Angel Reese caliber in the way that she's able to initiate offense, and the way that she's able to, get her teammates in a greater position to be better, you can't ignore that. And I think that's where the growth and mentality from her standpoint lies. I want to give you, some good numbers here. She's leading the Chicago Sky, and this is also brought to you by Cerebro Sports. I always use them as a trustworthy source, from an analytics, stats, and eye test standpoint. She leads her team in a CRAM of 8.5, and what that means is an overall perspective on how you're able to dictate the game, whether it be pure scoring, whether it be field goal or floor general standpoint, or around the rim standpoint. All of those numbers consist of high numbers, which gives her that average of an 8.5. Her usage rate right now sits at a 24.9% as of September 2nd. And with her averaging 14 the 14.6 points per game right now, her field goal percentage has risen astronomically, since the beginning of the season. So I think that when you're looking at that in context, once again, Angel Reese has been just the focal point of contact for the offense, and she has made, this offense a lot better, even with the cards they were dealt based off of the roster that they're playing with currently.
Yeah, again, great points made. I start with the point forward development of Angel. So naturally, like you mentioned, championship season at LSU, we see the foundation of a player that can do those things in a more sustained manner, in a more consistent manner. We've talked a lot about point forwards, even going back to last season, and honestly, even going back to seasons before that, considering Candace freaking Parker was a Chicago Sky player, the best point forward ever at this present moment. For Sky fans, you know what that looks like. And looking at Angels prospects coming into the W last season, you know that somewhere underneath the getting adjusted to the W level, that there would be a point where she starts to ascend in her skill development, and at some point that resurfaces. Now, what capacity that would be in would depend on what coach she has, if that coach is imploring for her to play that style of basketball, and obviously even more so the context of the pieces around her. You put shooters around her, you implore for her to take her greatest skill, which is rebounding the basketball. She came into the W as the best rebounder. Put that in tandem with other skills that she has, and you start to build out a game dynamic that allows for her to constantly put pressure on opponents. She puts pressure on them with her offensive rebounds. She puts pressure on teams with their defensive rebounds. Now, if you put that in tandem with her ability to handle the basketball and initiate an offense, if you take away that 2.5 to 3 seconds that goes from, they call them lags, where the game slows down and you allow for a defense to get set. If you take away those lags, you minimize those lags. And instead of Angel trying to find a guard to outlet the ball to and then find a lane to fill in transition and then get into whatever action you might want to get into, high-low, double drag, single drag, whatever situation you want to get into, if you eliminate those lags, you put pressure on the defense. If Angel's grabbing and going and she's getting into the half court with 22, sometimes 23 seconds, depending on where that rebound takes place and when she goes and gets it. If she's getting there 23 seconds, 22 seconds, and she's already going to get a paint touch, or she's already getting into a dribble handoff rescreen, or she's getting into an inverted pick and roll with one of these guards, and it's 22, 21 seconds on the clock, if you're able to get a defense to start rotating that early in the shot clock, that's infinite amount of advantages that you can also create outside of that initial point of attack that you create. So you imagine in that scenario, let's just say she gets into an early step-up screen, inverted pick and roll with Kia Nurse or Rachel Banham. On the backside of that, Kamilla Cardoso is somewhere in the opposite dunker spot or in the opposite slot area of the floor. Nothing comes of that initial action, so they just kick it out. And now it goes to Kamilla on the backside, and now she's immediately getting into a dribble handoff with one of those other guards. Now it's still 15 seconds on the shot clock. If they don't defend that action well, now that turns into a Kamilla post up, got a double team. You can't play single coverage there. Now Angel's able to get a cut or flash to the nail. And now the defense has been rotating constantly, making decision after decision after decision. At some point, you're going to make a mistake. That mistake might easily just be single coverage on Kamilla, to where she's either getting fouled, she's scoring, or she's doing both of those things. Or she's able to, as we'll get to in the second portion of the pod, make a pass. And you're just keeping the defense in rotation. You have to make decisions. You're putting pressure on them early. That dynamic, that development has been as important as anything for the Sky, because injuries are always disgusting, and I wish we could completely remove them from the game, but I don't know if you get there as quickly or as on high a volume as we have if Courtney Vandersloot is still in the lineup. And that's not an indictment against Courtney. That speaks to the respect, the reverence, the all-time great that she is. You want to allow for her to play her role because of what she does for everyone else. I think that now potentially getting Sloot back going into next season in tandem with the growth of Angel, now you're really working with something where you can benefit Sloot more, and Sloot can also benefit Angel more in expediting her skill development.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you in your assessment, Stephen, because just like you mentioned, like there are certain different scenarios that you can kick. And for me, I think that a lot of people don't understand what a secondary offense look like instead of a half court offense. When you have 23 seconds to work with on a shot clock, let's let's not even go with 24, the whole 24 seconds, but you work on the shot clock in quadrants. And I think that from that standpoint, when you look at the first two quadrants of the shot clock, that's your secondary offense. What can you get in the secondary fast break, off, whether it be off a rebound, whether it be off a live ball turnover? I think that's the most important thing. And if Angel is that point of contact and she's able to read that on the secondary, a lot of times you want to get high percentage shots off of those secondary reads. And when you look at what Angel Reese has been able to do in those secondary reads, you've been able to see Chicago run offense quickly and faster, as opposed to having to slow the offense down. Sometimes when they're in a half court setting, it's not a lot of action that you see because of how they're moving. It's not a lot of spacing to me, but when they're in that secondary offense, you can see the spacing because you see Ariel going towards the wing, Rachel going towards the wing, and there's a lot of space between the between Kamilla rim running and Angel handling the ball. So imagine if that was the same scenario had Courtney Vandersloot not been injured. Because imagine if we can see, that fast break with an Angel or a Courtney Vandersloot with the ball in their hands, guiding and initiating that offense in the secondary standpoint. I think that would have been much better to see, as opposed to what we've seen in the current state with the team that they have now. So you're absolutely right. Like, I see a lot more secondary 41 concepts, if you will. I would have liked to see a little bit more Denver actions with Ariel Atkins or Rachel Banham, who are magnificent shooters, coming off the Denver veer screens and all of that good stuff. But of course, this is still year one for Tyler Marsh, and there are a lot of things that he's probably seen in film where he's like, okay, I can see where I can be better here. I can see where we can improve there, especially with the presence of a Kamilla Cardoso in the middle. I think she's a dynamic athlete who can grab rebounds, rim run, and also do a lot of good things in the half court setting. We've seen that in college, where Coach Don Staley has made improvements in her half court settings. So there's going to be a lot of potential to look at in the future. But as of right now, I do see a lot of where this team can go, especially with that core in Angel as well as Kamilla Cardoso. So it is going to be very, very, very interesting to see what it looks like, in the future and moving forward.
Yeah. Well said again. I'll kind of wrap the Angel part of the conversation with the 7 free throw attempts. It's a very proud moment to see that number because the pressure she puts on opponents it's unique. I think their game against the Phoenix Mercury from last week, second half, really in the fourth quarter, she's getting the ball on some deep rolls. She's getting the ball on some short rolls. She's initiating drives at the point of attack by herself against the one and only Alyssa Thomas. And where Angel has never been shy about hitting first with her drives or on offensive rebounds or anything like that, never been shy from contact. What stood out to me, and you could also say the same thing about when she went up against Asia Wilson most recently as well, she's starting to get to a point in her skill development and her confidence in her handle where she's taking the reins of the game to her own, and she's putting her shoulder down. And especially against these superstar matchups with a Fee or AT or Asia or a Stewie, and she's putting her shoulder into the chest of these players and getting into her footwork from there. But doing it off of her own will. It's not a post up always. She's doing things on her own, navigating herself to the post with her own dribble. They call it a Barkley dribble where you navigate yourself to the post. She's doing these things, and these are moments of growth. These are bookmarkable moments. I mean, I think she scored about 6 points or so against Alyssa Thomas in that fourth quarter off of that alone. Just initiating herself, getting it into the chest, finding some separation from there, playing off of a pump fake or two. Might miss the initial look, but because of her multiple efforts of motorism skill, she's able to go and beat everybody else to that second chance and then scores and might get fouled or might get both of those two. Those are bookmarkable moments that really speak to her growth. And I think that because of the unique types of pressure that she can put on opponents, that 7 attempts from the free throw line it's very, very, very sustainable. And as she continues to knock down more of her free throws, if she's getting points from the field, points off of second chance opportunities, points in transition, points from the free throw line, and the jumper is continuing to grow, and the playmaking is continuing to grow as well. Now you're talking about a well-rounded engine that can truly be the hub of an offense because of the multifaceted skill that she has. Last quick question for you, Kevin. With Angel, do you see a defensive player of the year in Angel Reese?
Oh yeah. There's no question. In my opinion, right now, her defensive statistical impact, according to Cerebro Sports, is right now at a 75. So that number can grow astronomically. And I want to give context into defensive statistical impact. It's a combination of the amount of steals and blocks, stocks, if you will, without the potential of fouling. So if you have a stock ratio of a 6-1, so that's a great ratio. 6 stocks to 1 foul. And that's where defensive statistical impact comes into account. So I can definitely see a defensive player of the year in her future, because again, incredible footwork on the defensive end. She has incredible instincts on the defensive end, and she does provide a lot of presence without fouling. And she's very underrated in her verticality, from a defensive standpoint. A lot of people, don't really kind of look at the nuances of the game when we're talking about verticality. And verticality is like one of the most important things in basketball right now, because of how the game is being ruled in ref nowadays. So I think that from that standpoint, she indeed has a defensive player of the year in her future. And, with the improvements of her defensive statistical impact, she can definitely pull one out. And just to give additional context, I believe Asia Wilson right now is leading in defensive statistical impact right now at a 99. Behind her is Gabby Williams at a 96. Alana Smith and Nafisa Collier sits right behind her at a 93. So obviously, you see those defensive player of the year caliber players for 2025, but when you see Angel in that 75 rating right now, that can definitely go up into that 90s percentile, in her future for sure.
Yep, and I think that naturally comes with having better point of attack defenders around her, more players capable of dictating terms and containing the ball in multiple different ways, sometimes just guarding your yard, also being able to guard to a scheme. If we're trying to ice a ball handler on the sideline, are you doing a good job of influencing that player to me? But are you also staying attached to the hip where it's not a straight line drive, and now they're essentially just attacking the late switch one-on-one? Little things like that. I feel like when they clean up the personnel, get more players that are capable at the point of attack, they're going to really be working with something, because Angel's versatility is very special. She has no problem sitting down in the stance and switching with Michaela, switching with Elizabeth Williams, switching with Rebecca Allen at times, and going and guarding their initial matchups, which are usually sometimes perimeter-oriented players, excluding, obviously, Elizabeth Williams. And getting a stop, she relishes those moments. I can't remember who it was that she went out to guard a couple of games ago. She gets to switch with Michaela Onyenwere, and she immediately starts clapping her hands like all high schoolers do when they're guarding on defense, the ones that care about defense. And that just speaks to her joy. It's not a chore to play basketball for Angel, especially defensively. She relishes the moment to showcase her versatility, and it's disruptive. It genuinely is. I think the difference between her and Fee and Atlanta and Gabby and Asia, you can throw. I would throw Alyssa Thomas in that mix as well, as far as those names go. The defensive personnel, the defensive infrastructure around her, different. They have more players more capable of doing different things and just genuinely being able to foundationally guard their yard, which naturally allows for those players to be more impactful at what they do, being disruptors. So kind of put a bow and a tie on Angel and get to Kamilla now. But before we get to that point, good transition point for our producer, Steven. I spoke with Tyler Marsh about everything that is the Skyscrapers and their playmaking. From earlier last week against the Phoenix Mercury, excuse me. Here was everything that Tyler Marsh had to say about that tandem, what their potential kind of has entailed, and how they've kind of gotten to this point now.
23 assists for your team on average over the last 4 games. Y'all have been preaching to move it all season long. It feels like the buy-in is starting to hit in terms of figuring out how to do it. within all of that, there's a lot of Angel and Kamilla passing to each other as well as their teammates. Can you speak to how those two, as playmaking hubs for your team, kind of unlock things?
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. I think that the spacing for us has been really good over the last few games, which has contributed to our ability to move the ball. We're not kind of jam-packed on top of each other, and so when we're willing and able to cut and respace and maintain that spacing, when we're able to find pockets within the defense to get it to our bigs, whether it's on short rolls or deep rolls, and then collapsing the defense in the paint and kicking out, like that's kind of what we've been able to be really good at over the last few games. And I think that, again, I spoke all season, our bigs have been great all year long at facilitating, and it's just been about our ability to get it to them in spaces where they're able to create for each other. I think that the tandem that Angel and Kamilla have had, or Angel and Elizabeth, or Elizabeth and Kamilla have had, they've really been in sync with each other this later half of the season, I think, and for most of the season. And so I think that we've found somewhat of a consistency over the last few games in terms of how to play off of each other. It's allowed us to contribute to those assists, and then it always helps when you're when you're converting off of that as well. So it's a lot of components to it.
Thank you.
Yeah, so some very fun things mentioned from Coach Tyler Marsh. I want to also transition into, since we're speaking about Kamilla, got a chance to also speak with assistant coach Courtney Paris, who's been working specifically with Kamilla and Angel and everything that is being a post in a modern sense. Here's what Courtney Paris had to say about Kamilla Cardoso and the growth that she's seen from her this season.
The great thing about Mill is she's 6'7", but she's so mobile, and she's good on the move. Like, she's able to pass the ball, she's able to have the footwork and do the things on the move, which is really hard for bigger players, especially 6'7" players. But that makes her really dynamic because you can get into things fast. She just plays with the pace. She has the skill level to do it. Has such great hands. She can catch on the move. She can pass on the move. She's just so mobile.
With Kamilla as well, just from my viewing of her, the anticipation on some of the passes she makes really stands out. Is that something that is developable skill-wise, or is that something that players are just innately baked with?
I think one of the things about her, you have that skill. Like, she innately just has it. Not everybody can do that. Even if you want to do it, you can't. But also, she's just so unselfish. She wants to get her teammates involved. She sees the action. She knows what they can do, and she wants to get it to them. So part of that is just her willingness to be a great passer. It's not a black hole when it goes to her. She's looking to get her teammates involved.
I mean, she said a ton of things, and you could see the way that Courtney was glowing when she was speaking about the prospects of Kamilla, the foundation she's laid in this season, and how she's kind of implemented a lot of the learnings in real time. Steven, we can go ahead and get the Kamilla Cardoso graphic up as well, and just kind of detailing what she's been up to post All-Star break. Averaging 14.5 points, 52% from the field, 9.7 rebounds per game, 3.1 assists per game, 3.6 free throw attempts, 1.2 blocks. Regarding her rebounding, I think she's still top 6 or top 5 in offensive rebounding post All-Star break. So you put that in tandem with everything that is Angel Reese and being the best offensive rebounder in the W. You're talking about a two-player tandem that, if you're speaking to the margins, how can you create extra possessions? How can you get unscripted points that come from multiple efforts? If you have two players that are grabbing the volume of offensive rebounds that they are, putting the pressure on opposing teams the way that they are, and they're putting up efficient and effective near double-doubles for both of those two, that's a lot to work with, Kevin. That is a lot. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about the potential of this tandem. But specific to Kamilla, I'll kind of pass the rock to you and let you rock out. What have you seen from her in this post All-Star break stretch that suggests to you that she could potentially be one of those best, if not the best center in the WNBA?
Listen, there's so much to say about Kamilla Cardoso, and she has been such a remarkable player in the W. And I think for me, Kamilla Cardoso stands out a lot more because of her innate ability to do a lot of the things that Coach Parrish just talked about. Standing at 6'7", as mobile as she can be, and let's remind everybody, she played in China in the off season, and what we've seen in China in her development there, in watching what she was able to do, not only in the full court realm, but also in the half court, how she was able to put the ball on the floor, how she was able to shoot. You're not seeing that a lot in the W right now, but she has the capability of doing it. And, her potential is endless. I think post All-Star break, they've made it a priority to have better post entry passes. And I think with Angel being at the point of attack, and seeing the gravitational pull that she has from that perspective, has done a lot better than it was in the beginning of the season and pre-All-Star break. So I think that improvement, first off, is something that we need to look out for a little bit more going into the last 3 or 4 games of the season. Because now when you're looking at the last 3 or 4 games of the season, you want to start at looking at the future. You want to start at, okay, what will we look like in 2026, barring, any potential things that's happening in the CBA. So with Kamilla, in particular, there's not a lot of, for lack of better terms, there's not a lot of negatives that you can point out, because there's so many positive that you've seen. Is just getting the right pieces around her that will make it much more of a impressing thing for Kamilla to improve on, just from a scoring standpoint, from a rebounding standpoint, and then also from if we're going on the defensive side, from a defensive standpoint, she has all of the tools. And with her having all the tools, is just getting the necessary pieces around her to elevate and magnify what she can do, on both ends of the floor. So I think what's dynamic about Kamilla Cardoso is right now she's sitting second behind Angel Reese and C-Ram in 7.9. She has a usage rate right now of 23.4, which I think could be much higher. Obviously, Angel Reese has a higher usage rate of 24.9. But when you're looking at the way that the offense is ran, I think that it could be more from a potential standpoint in Kamilla. And I want to see in the future if we can look at a Tina Charles-esque, a John Quo Jones-esque perimeter game. And again, I mentioned she's done that. If you've seen her tape in China, she has done it. So it's going to be a great project to see, from a half court standpoint. When we're looking at the game and how we see the 41 concept and the 5-out concept now, I think that incorporating that, with a Kamilla Cardoso is not going to be hard to implement, in my opinion, because I think that she's very well in the high pick and roll. As you mentioned, in the question that you asked Coach Parrish, she has great hands. She understands where she is on the floor. She also understands when she puts the ball on the floor, a great passer out of the double team. And she hasn't seen a lot of double teams as well. So when you're looking at that dynamic, you want to see if you want to put, and I love putting player comparisons into perspective. Shout out to Melissa right there in the comments. I think when you're looking at the Tina Charles type archetype of what Kamilla Cardoso can do, or a not necessarily a stretch like what John Quo Jones can do, but maybe between the pinch post and the elbow, that will be something that's unstoppable for Kamilla Cardoso. And I think she will get there throughout the dynamics of her career.
Yeah, There's so much fun to talk about with Kamilla, man. She's such a fun player. It feels like so much of the game comes so naturally to her. First thing I look at with her and her growth, it's the footwork out of screening. So she's gotten significantly more clean with that reverse pivot. And the difference between what she was doing and what she is doing now, she would kind of set the screen and she would just kind of turn over and get into the roll. Now that works sometimes, but you're more square to the ball. You have a more sharp line in terms of holding your line from point A to point B on your roll when you get into this reverse pivot. And the reverse pivot is also significantly more effective to your short roll capabilities. Now, Kamilla is a player that is very good on the short roll. But when you get into these kind of speed turns, you run past that window for the short roll, and it ends up becoming an immediate deep roll. Now, when you get into the reverse pivot after you screen and you get it on that short roll, now if you're Kamilla, you're 6'7", your line of sight is different than any other players on the court. Put that in tandem with the anticipation part that I asked Courtney Paris about, as well as her ability to just make accurate passes.
Yes.
You're talking about a player that, again, no different than Angel, but unique from Angel, can be a hub for an offense in and of herself. Deep rolls, where her verticality and her catch point in terms of being able to catch it in the stratosphere that most players just can't reach. Her deep rolls and putting it up there in the sky and saying Miller can go get that, and she does what she does with her good hands. That's tough. You put that in tandem with the short rolls and her being able to catch it on the roll, assess the lay of the land. If there's not a quick decision to be made, she can never be wrong just putting it on the deck, putting her shoulder into that matchup that's in front of her, playing off of footwork, and then getting up an opportunity for an and one, if not just a bucket. That pressure is unique. You can't teach 6'7". You also can't teach her footwork. You also, to Courtney Paris's point, you can't teach the mind. That's something that a player either just has or they don't. And the quick reads that Kamilla makes, it's very unique. Some of these passes that she's making, go back to that game against Las Vegas. There's two passes. Both of them came in kind of short roll situations where one play she's tipping it on the flight of the pass, understanding where Angel Reese is. She gets the catch that's above her head. Rather than catching it with two, coming down with it, she tips it over, and this is coming after she slips out of the screen quickly, which creates new pace, new advantage. Gets downhill, gets the pass to her, tips it down to Angel Reese, and puts it at a point where, because of the tip and because of the slip into the roll happens so quick, the helper rotation below the free throw line, it just can't happen quick enough. Nor can it match up with the size of a pass going from Kamilla to Angel. She tips it. These are not things that you can teach. Like, I need people to understand how special of a play this is and how it really entails just how much greatness there is within this tandem when they reach their potential together. I mean, then there was another situation where she hit Angel with the pass. Angel didn't finish the layup on this one, but another situation where Kamilla gets a deep touch and she makes a quick decision off of that. And the decision that she makes on the timing and the accuracy of the pass is too quick for that person, that sink defender, to come over and help the low man before that player that's cutting behind the person that had to help the helper can get to that point. And they, again, to Melissa's point in the chat, the synergy, they're very much in tandem with one another. I think maybe the most integral growth point for them has been their dunker spot spacing and the respacing and understanding how to manipulate that context to put either the person with the ball in the advantage or the person on the cut in the advantage, and being able to deliver accurate passes to one another in a myriad of situations. Very, very, very special player Kamilla Cardoso is. At her size, she shouldn't be able to move so gracefully, so fluidly like she does, nor should she be able to assess and make passes off of the things that she sees with the accuracy that she does. Other thing for me with Kamilla, and then I'll kind of transition us to those two being in tandem with one another, the velocity on the passes that she makes is special. It's one thing to see things, it's another thing to make accurate passes. If your pass isn't getting there quick enough, it's just not going to hit the same. You kind of look at quarterbacks in football. The quarterbacks that have stronger arms can thread needles in windows that other quarterbacks that see the same thing just can't get it there quick enough in. So let's just throw Brett Favre out there. I know it's CHGO, I know, but gunslinger, one of the strongest arms ever. The passes in the windows that he made are not the same type of passes that a Peyton Manning can make, not the same passes that a Tom Brady can make. That's different types of greatness, but because he has a stronger arm, those windows he can thread needles in more uniquely than other players can. Now, how is that equivalent to Kamilla? Look at some of the passes she makes. If you're talking about one of the biggest advantages being the closeout and being able to generate closeouts, if she's making a corner skip off of a short roll, or she's passing it cross court after it's sprayed around the floor, and they're trying to maintain or keep an advantage, and she makes that extra pass, the zip that it has, the defense can only move so fast. The ball is always faster than the man. She's creating closeouts, and now her teammates are able to play off of that. It's very special. Any kind of closing thoughts on Kamilla individually before we kind of speak about each of those two in tandem with another and then get out of here?
Yeah, just to close out, a lot of people don't understand the apex of the ball and where she keeps the ball high, especially on the catch. A lot of times and as a coach and as a player development trainer, I always tell my bigs, keep the ball at the apex of the rim. Never bring it down because you're allowing the defense to at least get a snag at it. And the way that she's been able to do that, and the way that she's been able to just from a footwork standpoint, keep the ball high and always be at the apex of the rim, it's always special to see. And that's one thing about Kamilla Cardoso that you can't take away from her. She's always been that type of player that's been able to keep the ball high, and that 6'7" height, and then maybe a standing reach of 7'3". Like, there's no way you're able to cause a turnover unless you're fouling. So it's very, very amazing to see with Kamilla, and I cannot wait to see the continued growth and development that she's going to be able to provide us in the next however many years she decides to play.
You can't teach 6'7"
at all.
You can't teach a plus 7 foot standing reach
at all.
You just can't teach these things, and most opponents can't match up with that, especially if you put in tandem with that the athleticism that she brings. All right, Kevin, we've been having a great conversation. We kind of got to put a bow on things relatively soon in the next 5 minutes or so. If you look at the tandem, the skyscrapers, Angel and Kamilla in tandem with one another, if you could think of one word to describe how you see their potentials, their ceilings in tandem with one another, what would that word be?
Dangerous.
That's literally the exact same word that I had.
Dangerous.
I had dangerous, and then I was going to go with devastating. Same definition. Go ahead and explain why you choose dangerous.
Dangerous is because there are going to be so many instances where defenses are going to be heartbroken because they've played defense for 23 seconds and was not able to grab the defensive rebound. And that's giving Chicago more opportunities. And when you have more opportunities, when you have more possessions, there's a high probability that you will score more points. And that's where dangerous comes into the equation. When you have Angel Reese, who right now post All-Star break at 4.6 offensive rebounds per game. When you have a Kamilla Cardoso, at the apex of her rebounding. I don't have the numbers in front of me from a post All-Star standpoint in terms of offensive rebounds, but when she gets better at that as well, more possession equals more opportunities to score. And when you have a tandem like that, and then not to mention Angel Reese's ability to facilitate offense at the point of attack, that is incredibly dangerous. So once they get the team around them, when they have bona fide scorers, bona fide shooters, bona fide, point of attack guards, if you will. It is going to be so much fun to watch, and I honestly cannot wait to see when that happens. You've seen flashes of it this year. I'm not going to say you have not seen flashes of it. You've seen flashes of it. Go back to that Minnesota Lynx game in Chicago. Like, you've seen flashes of it. You can't say you haven't. And if you are a fan that says you haven't, I don't know if I can call you a fan, because we've seen flashes of it, and it's going to just get even better. And I hope, that they put the right, pieces around them. Like I said in the beginning of the show, you got to play the cards that you're dealt. Unfortunately, they were dealt this particular hand. They played it. They'll continue to improve. And let's see where the growth leads from here.
To answer your question about offensive rebound and post All-Star break, I mentioned she was top 5, top 6. She is number 5. Angel Reese, obviously number 1 post All-Star break, 4.6 offensive rebounds on average. Kamilla trailing a little bit behind, but top 5 still. Well, actually, technically tied for 4th with Asia Wilson at 2.8 offensive rebounds per game post All-Star break stretch. So there's the context. You're talking about you're getting that many extra possessions and extra opportunities to get shots up on goal. Unscripted points, the margins. That's a way to dominate a game, not just chip away and get back into neutral, to truly dominate a game. Put that in tandem with the pressure they put on opponents for free throw attempts in tandem with one another. Almost 10 on average post All-Star break between both of those two. You're talking about a lot of ways in which you're keeping your defense set, you're putting points on the board, and a lot of their impact is directly involved in everything. Just for parody purposes, I won't use the same word. I'm glad we were on the same brain wavelength. We'll definitely have you on to talk about roster construct around these two in the offseason, because that's a thorough conversation that we'll be able to have more fun with, considering there'll be so many free agents for the Sky to have an opportunity at potentially bringing in with them. But I'll say prolific. I got the OG nip behind me. I got a marathon shirt on, so I feel like prolific is appropriate. And it's because of the uniqueness of the two. There's 2 plays that really stand out to me, and then we can kind of get out of here. Against Vegas, I think it was an offensive rebound that took place. Somehow Angel ends up with the ball on the left side of the floor. It's a completely empty side of the floor. Kamilla trails into it, gets over to Angel to set a screen. Now, Angel leaves a little bit too early and rejecting that screen in the left side of the floor, and she ends up getting a shot blocked by Asia Wilson. If she's a little bit more patient, allows for that screen to truly be set from Kamilla, that's going to remove Asia from being as close to the basket and having that angle to beat Angel to her spot. Angel can play off of her footwork, put a spin move in there, do some little things like that. But another moment of growth for me. Fast forward all the way to the early part of the season, first quarter of the season. They're going up against the Connecticut Sun. It's the game where Angel had a triple-double.
Yeah.
She's bringing it up the floor in transition. Kamilla's posting up on the strong side, the same side of the floor. It's an empty side. I think they're pressuring Kamilla heavily, so the passing angle isn't there. Oh, no, excuse me. They're not pressuring Kamilla heavily. They're sagging off of Angel because they know she's not a threat to shoot the 3 at this present moment. They're sagging off of Angel to take away the entry pass into the post to Kamilla. So what do they do in tandem with one another? Kamilla goes from being engaged in the post to setting a drag screen almost at the paint for Angel to then continue on her momentum with the live dribble. She ends up using that screen like we talked about in the Angel portion. She gets a paint touch with like 19, 20 seconds on the shot clock. That collapses the defense, and also wide open Rebecca Allen in the left corner, one of her favorite spots on the floor, with like 18, 17 seconds left on the shot clock. Catch and shoot, clean catch and shoot opportunity. Angel hits her with an accurate pass. Now, Beck Allen, I believe, misses this shot, but Angel and Kamilla getting into pick and roll with one another, whether it's a semi-transition, secondary break like the situation I'm explaining here, whether it's after one of those two grabs an offensive rebound and they kind of get into it in a flow with that 14 seconds left on the clock that you have to work in, or they just get into it to start an offense at the point of attack. There is great potential there. Teams are going to sag off an Angel. That's going to create opportunity to play with screening angles and for her to get paint touches and get downhill. She obviously has no problem passing the ball to Kamilla. She has her most assists to Kamilla and vice versa as well. there's some fun. I feel like there's bones to an offensive foundation and identity that they can really lean more into that I would like to see them get to finish this season. Absolutely. Last final thoughts for you, Kevin. The floor is yours, my man. Let the people know where they can find you. Any other thoughts that you might want to get off real quick, and then we'll kind of close.
All right, and once again, I appreciate the invitation. I mean, huge fan of yours, and continue to do what you're doing. Also, just a quick note. Everybody knows that from a media standpoint, you know, we have independents, we have majors. We're all under one tandem, and the biggest thing that we want to do is amplify the sport and amplify the game. So let's continue to do that. Let's continue to do it together. So I do want to shout out the 9450. Shout out to the team over there. You know, follow me at k.lu3h on all platforms. I'm always on Twitter doing the most, you know, from a basketball standpoint. Also follow the 9450 on Twitter as well. Again, I do want to just give a shout out to everyone on the independent side. There's been a lot of us, you know, since for me, it's been since 2017. But for a lot of people, you know, since the beginning of 2020, that has poured a lot, you know, into the WNBA. And I want the WNBA to know that we are out here. We are loud. We are very supportive. So continue to look for, you know, a lot of those independents and show a lot of that support as well. It's very, very appreciative, you know, but we are out here and we're ready, you know, to work. All you got to do is call us. We'll be here. Thank, you know, you guys once again. And I can't wait to have more conversations, you know, about, you know, the W and, you know, everyone that's within the W.
Appreciate you again for your time, Kevin. Obviously I've been smiling and bobbleheading the entire show because I'm a fan of yours, a fan of your ways in which you watch the game and you uplift the game and you help to grow the game. So thank you again for your time. Thank you for your contributions and your efforts. I'm all about praising and supporting the people that do the things that we desire to see more of, especially in this space. And people genuinely don't appreciate this space, and we can tell because of the ways in which it's handled. So the fact that you do it the way that you do so diligently and have been doing so for so long, again, major salute, man. Can't say enough. This will not be the last time y'all see Kevin on this podcast. We will be talking again soon. And until then, make sure you go and follow him on Twitter. You've been seeing his Twitter handle flashing on the lower third, as you see it here again. Shout out to Steven on the ones and twos. K.Lu3H again, K.Lu3H. You want to also make sure you follow me on Twitter at StevenPG3. That's Steven with a PH. Also want to make sure you follow the CHGO Sky platform as well, where we do live tweets and we talk with players and coaches and all of those things. CHGO_Sky. Appreciate the audio listeners. Appreciate everybody that's been watching on YouTube. We will talk to you all soon. Until then, go Sky, and y'all be blessed and be safe out there. Take care.
We all silly like the mayor.